Welcome to the Title IX Campus Save Act and Violence Against Women Act student training for the University of the Southwest. This presentation will acquaint you with the importance of these various legislative acts, define essential terms related to these acts, and provide you with a course of action should you ever be a victim, witness, or bystander of harassing behavior or inappropriate sexual conduct. Title IX is a landmark 1972 federal civil rights law that prohibits sexual harassment, gender-based discrimination, and sexual violence. Title IX provides that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Under Title IX, Congress can withhold federal funds from colleges or universities that allow sexual discrimination or fail to take appropriate measures in response to such discrimination. This includes the reporting of sexual misconduct. Bullying and intimidation, as well as stalking, are also covered under this umbrella. The University of the Southwest is committed to providing an environment free from discrimination on the basis of sex. USW provides many resources to students, faculty, and staff to address concerns relating to discrimination on the basis of sex, which includes sexual misconduct. Although Title IX is perhaps best known for its mission to achieve gender equity in athletic programming, Title IX's protections are much broader in scope. It applies to all forms of sexual discrimination, including sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and sexual violence. It also applies to all forms of gender-based harassment. Sexual discrimination includes lack of equal opportunities, harassment, and sexual assault or sexual violence. Anyone can commit sexual discrimination and anyone can be the victim. It does not just happen in the stereotypical male against female scenario. Title IX applies equally to students, staff, and faculty. It protects students and employees at educational institutions from sexual harassment by any school employee, student, or non-employee third party. There are several categories of conduct related to Title IX, the Campus Save Act, and the Violence Against Women Act. Here are some definitions to help clarify them. If a person is denied access or parity and opportunity related to admissions, housing and facilities, courses and educational activities, career guidance and counseling, financial aid, or athletics based upon gender, it is considered a Title IX issue under lack of equal opportunity. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome sexual advance, request for sexual favors, or other unwanted verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature when one or more specific conditions are present. Sexual harassment also includes harassment based on gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, which may include acts of verbal, nonverbal, or physical aggression, intimidation, or hostility based on gender stereotyping, even if the acts do not involve conduct of a sexual nature. Sexual harassment can take many forms. Sexual harassment may be blatant and intentional, or may be more subtle and indirect. Sexual harassment does not have to include intent to harm, be directed at a specific target, or involve repeated incidents. Sexual harassment may be committed by anyone, regardless of gender, age, position, or authority. While there is often a power differential between two persons, perhaps due to differences in age, social status, education, or employment relationships, harassment can occur in any context. Sexual harassment may be committed by a stranger, an acquaintance, or someone with whom the complainant has an intimate or sexual relationship. Sexual harassment may be committed by or against an individual, or may be the result of actions of an organization or group. Sexual harassment may occur by or against an individual of any sex, gender, gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. Sexual harassment may occur in the classroom, in the workplace, in residential settings, over electronic media, including the internet, telephone, and text, or in any other setting. Sexual harassment may be a one-time event or part of a pattern of behavior. Sexual harassment may be committed in the presence of others or when the parties are alone. Sexual harassment may affect the complainant and/or third parties who witness or observe the harassment. Key determining factors are that the behavior is unwelcome, is gender-based, and is reasonably perceived as offensive and objectionable. Specific examples of unwelcome sexual misconduct include pressure for dates, sexual phone calls, voice messages, or emails, persistent and unwelcome flirtation of a sexual nature, pressuring persons for sexual favors, spreading sexual rumors, rating persons as to sexual activity or performance, sexual comments directed at someone or about someone via social media, circulating or showing websites of a sexual nature, or displaying or distributing sexually explicit drawings, pictures, or written materials. A hostile environment is one where there is conduct that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it undermines the educational experience of a student or group of students and denies equal access to the university's resources and opportunities. A single isolated incident of sexual harassment alone may create a hostile environment if the incident is sufficiently severe. The more severe the conduct, the less need there is to show a repetitive series of incidents to create hostile environment, particularly if the harassment is physical. It is important to note that there is a difference between pure speech and expression, which is protected by the First Amendment, and conduct. Pure speech and expression cannot create a hostile environment unless it so undermines and detracts from the complainant's education experience that the student is effectively denied equal access to the university's resources and opportunities. Sexual assault is defined as having sexual intercourse or sexual contact with another individual without consent. Consent to engage in sexual activity must be knowing and voluntary. It must exist from beginning to end of each instance of sexual activity and for each form of sexual contact. Consent is demonstrated through mutually understandable words and actions that clearly indicate a willingness to engage freely in sexual activity. Consent may not be inferred from silence, passivity, lack of resistance, or lack of an active response alone. A person who does not physically resist or verbally refuse sexual activity is not necessarily giving consent. Consent is active, not passive. In other words, if someone is intoxicated through the use of alcohol or drugs, they cannot legally give consent. Chapter 42 of U.S. Code Section 13925 defines domestic violence as felony or misdemeanor crimes of violence committed by a current or former spouse or intimate partner of the victim or by any other person against an adult or youth victim who is protected from that person's acts under the domestic or family violence laws. According to Chapter 42 of U.S. Code Section 13925, dating violence is defined as violence committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim and in which the following factors have been taken into consideration: the length of the relationship, the type of the relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Sexual exploitation is an act or acts committed through non-consensual abuse or exploitation of another person's sexuality for the purpose of sexual gratification, financial gain, personal benefit or advantage, or any other non-legitimate purpose. The act or acts of sexual exploitation are prohibited, even though the behavior does not constitute one of the other sexual misconduct offenses. Both bullying and intimidation are prohibited at the University of the Southwest, and participating in such acts will result in disciplinary action. Anyone who attempts to use bullying or intimidation to retaliate against someone who reports an incident, brings a complaint, or participates in an investigation in an attempt to influence the judicial process will be in violation and will be subject to disciplinary action. Stalking occurs when a person engages in a course of conduct or repeatedly commits acts towards another person, including following the person without proper authority, under circumstances that demonstrate either of the following. The conduct places the person in reasonable fear of bodily injury, or the conduct reasonably causes substantial emotional distress to the person. Stalking includes the concept of cyberstalking, in which electronic media such as internet, social networks, blogs, cell phones, texts, or other similar devices or forms of contact are used to pursue, harass, or make unwelcome contact with another person in an unsolicited fashion. Examples of stalking include unwelcome and repeated visual or physical proximity to a person, repeated oral or written threats, extortion of money or valuables, unwelcome or unsolicited written communication, including letters, cards, email, instant messages, and messages on online bulletin boards, unwelcome or unsolicited communications about a person, their family, friends, or co-workers, sending or posting unwelcome or unsolicited messages with an assumed identity or implicitly threatening physical contact, or any combination of these behaviors directed towards an individual person. What should you do in response to sexual discrimination? You have several roles at the University of the Southwest. Of course, your primary role is that of a student, but in your time here you may also be a friend, a roommate, a leader, an athlete, a role model, a club or organization member, and/or an employee. USW is providing this training not only to prepare you for your role as a university student, but also to help you balance the many roles you play here on campus. Some of your roles may confuse you. You may not realize that you have a duty to report information you get about sexual misconduct if it comes from a friend who always shares sensitive details with you. When in doubt, talk with your resident assistant, your residence director, or your housing director, or any faculty or staff member with whom you feel comfortable. Keep in mind, as a student, you are a representative of the university, making you a role model with a duty to help others. If you're told about an incident, there are some do's and don'ts. Do not judge the victim. Do listen closely. Do acknowledge how the victim feels. Do explain that you will need to relay the information. Do encourage the victim to officially report the incident, him or herself. Do suggest the victim seek medical attention. And do tell your resident assistant, resident director, housing director, or any faculty or staff member. It is your responsibility, your duty, to report an incident of sexual discrimination, harassment, or violence if you've been told about it. Students have common concerns regarding the reporting of such incidents. USW will not retaliate against someone filing a complaint. They will not encourage or allow mediation of the complaint or discourage the complainant or victim from continuing his or her education. USW will be proactive in ensuring our campus is safe and free of sexual discrimination and take immediate action to ensure a complainant or victim can continue his or her education free of ongoing sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, or sexual violence. In addition to conduct which occurs on university property or in connection with official university functions, USW has the discretion to exercise jurisdiction over USW students' off-campus sexual misconduct behavior, such as physical abuse, threats of violence, sexual harassment, and stalking behavior. USW can issue a no-contact directive under Title IX to prevent the accused person from making any kind of contact with the complainant or victim. What happens after a report is filed? USW has an established procedure for handling sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, and sexual violence incidents. USW must keep the complainant or victim safe from retaliatory harassment or behavior. Members of the USW community, guests, and visitors have the right to be free from all forms of gender and sex-based discrimination, examples of which can include acts of sexual violence, sexual harassment, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. All members of the campus community are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that does not infringe upon the rights of others. USW believes in a zero-tolerance policy for gender-based misconduct. When an allegation of misconduct is brought to an appropriate administrator's attention, and a respondent is found to have violated this policy, serious sanctions will be used to reasonably ensure that such actions are never repeated. What can you do if you're a bystander and witness such an incident? Edmund Burke, Irish-born statesman, orator, and political thinker, is credited with stating, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." If you witness an incident of sexual misconduct, you have the ability through positive peer pressure and the Title IX reporting structure to make a difference in our campus climate. You have the ability to begin changing cultural norms and the acceptance of sexual harassment and violence. You have the ability to influence others around you to feel responsible and competent in intervening. You have the ability to be a role model for helping others. There are resources available for you if you need assistance or simply want to learn more. There are also mobile app resources. Circle of Six is an app that allows you to connect with 6 of your contacts to stay close, stay safe, and prevent violence before it happens. Need help getting home? Need an interruption from an uncomfortable encounter? 2 touches on your phone lets your circle know where you are and how they can help. The Department of Defense Safe Helpline app allows sexual assault survivors in the military to create a custom self-care plan and connect resources from anywhere in the world. And the One Love DA app is designed to help those who are unsure whether or not they are experiencing or witnessing an unsafe, potentially violent relationship and assess the danger. At this time, please complete the brief quiz based upon this presentation to document your understanding of Title IX as well as document the university's compliance with federal regulations and mandates. This quiz is available on Blackboard. Thank you so much for your attention.